Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. Couple things real quick. First off, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Secondarily, go check out the WordPress blog. What I'm going to be doing is kind of a real-time list of some relevant Black Friday stuff, both in terms of just gear that I either use or friends of the channel, as well as through my Amazon store. So check that out if you still need to get some shopping done. And obviously some of that helps out the channel as well, so thank you. What I wanted to touch on today is kind of picking up from last week's video where I was talking about the Filster Summit and behind the hip carry. There's a couple of considerations when you're wearing a jacket that I want to make sure that you factor in. Now, this is going to apply regardless if you're carrying inside or outside the waistband. So, if you carry behind the hip, and you have call to wear jackets, specifically suits, sport coats, stuff like that, not more, I mean, this does apply to a degree to more sort of utilitarian jackets, but this is some stuff that you're going to want to pay attention to. As I mentioned last week, if you've got an unvented jacket, then that kind of makes life easy. However, if your jacket does have vents in it, whether it's a single vent or whether it's the two vents on the side, you need to pay attention to, number one, how well the jacket fits, as well as where you're placing that holster. Because when you have the jacket buttoned, if you have the holster in the inappropriate spot, it can pull that vent open and actually expose either the holster or the pistol or both. This, however, is really the most critical part. And it doesn't matter if you spent $50 on a jacket or $5,000 on a jacket. The liner is something that you need to pay attention to. Most suits, sports jackets, etc., they use a material called viscose in the lining. Some do silk, but viscose is by far the most common jacket liner material. It is breathable, and most importantly, it's slick. The idea is that it needs to be able to kind of slide over your shirt and your body, and it doesn't bind on anything, which is good, but here's a problem. When we're talking about firearms, even if you've got the best dehorned, deburred thing on the planet, this is still, at its core, a chunk of metal with points and right angles, whether it's the sights, whether it's the slide, whether it's a hammer spur, whether it's the edge profile of any of that. This is metal, this is fabric. And anytime you get this rubbing across a metal surface long enough, eventually you are going to wear a hole in your jacket. And getting a jacket relined, even if you're on real good terms with your tailor, is relatively expensive because they're having to basically deconstruct the jacket and put a new liner in. So what I recommend for people is if you are going to carry behind the hip, and whatever jackets you are going to be wearing, it's not a bad idea to find a tailor and have them sew kind of a sacrificial layer into that. And it can be either another layer of viscose. If you want something a bit more durable, you could do something like moleskin or canvas. But if you are wearing this regularly enough, eventually you're going to start wearing holes and stuff. And the jacket's going to give out way before the gun will. And again, the reason why this is important is it doesn't matter how much you're spending on your clothing. You want to get the maximum longevity out of it that you possibly can. And so I'd rather spend, $30, $50 preventatively than having to, at the very least, replace the jacket entirely. And even if I'm real lucky and I find one that I like that fits me properly for another $50, I'm going to run into the same problem. So definitely pay attention to your vents. Definitely have that extra liner sewn in. And then also, whenever you're getting fitted, make sure that you're getting fitted with the firearm. I'm not generally a fan of having concealed carry specific modifications made to garments. But if you're going to do it, you need to make sure that you're doing it intentionally. And whenever you have a jacket buttoned, I actually I need to get a new button sewn on this one, which is why it hasn't made an appearance in a while. you need to make sure that at the bare minimum, everything is symmetrical, because you've got the shoulders then taper into the waist and then kind of flare back out to a degree to the seat. You're not going for an hourglass shape. You're trying to accentuate the masculine physique, but you want to make sure that it's balanced, because if you got one side that's bulging out more than the other, the human eye is drawn to asymmetry. And so that's just one of those little things that can draw unwanted attention. At the very least, makes it look like your jacket doesn't fit properly. At worst, it might garner the attention of the wrong people. So always, if you are carrying on or behind the hip, or even shoulder holsters, stuff like that, you want to get your jackets fitted while you're wearing the gun. And my general recommendation for that, I can't say it's a hard and fast rule, but what I've found is kind of the safest subtle check, especially if you're working in an area where private gun ownership and gun carriage is not as common, is if you ask your tailor if they do any work with plainclothes law enforcement, then that's kind of a good indicator as to if they are comfortable and accustomed to tailoring around firearms and the requisite support gear. So let me know what you think. You know, especially for kind of my old guard, my older cops especially. I want to hear your experiences, because admittedly, I don't have a ton of experience carrying behind the hip under a jacket. Like I said, I've been team appendix carry for basically the last 10 years. One of the reasons is I find it's easier to incorporate the firearm into a wider range of wardrobe without these types of modifications. But if you have any tips and tricks that you've worked out over the years, I want to hear about that down in the comments. If you have questions about this, obviously put those down there and I will do my best to answer them as well. So aside from that, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Happy Thanksgiving, stay dangerous, and stay sharp.